Bomb threats send Harvard into lockdown for most of the day. We'll look at the robust response 8 months after the marathon bombings. Plus, corresponding with a killer. We're joined by a local woman who reached out to Whitey Bulger in hopes of getting to the bottom of her father's death. And reveling in tradition. Celebrating the season Spanish style. Now on Greater Boston. Good evening. Just days from now, the annual winter exodus from Harvard will be complete. Classes are already over for the semester, and just a few finals have yet to be finished. But today, the morning exams were canceled, and several buildings were evacuated after police were told there were 4 explosive devices on campus. Hours later, the scene was cleared. But as WGBH News reporter Gail Huff reports, the threat conjured memories of the Boston Marathon bombings for some.
By the time police arrived at Harvard Science Center, most students had deserted their final exams and evacuated the building.
The fire alarms just went off and we were evacuated. We really didn't know anything.
Inside Harvard Yard, another 2 buildings where finals were being taken were evacuated, along with a freshman dorm building.
It was a little bit unnerving.
Minutes later, university officials sent out a text alert to students and faculty. Eliza Nunez reads the alert from her cell phone.
Harvard alert, unconfirmed reports of explosives at 4 sites on campus. Science Center, Thayer, Seaver, and Emerson. Please evacuate those buildings now.
Her first thought was of the marathon bombings last April.
Those events on campus were, they were very close to us, so everyone was really worried then, and I'm sure still people are thinking of those events.
It seems that the city's trying to be extra cautious due to what happened at the marathon, so I guess it makes sense that they're making such a big deal of this because it could be a big deal.
They have a bomb scare.
Altogether, 4 buildings were targeted in a threat that officials say was delivered via the internet around 9 o'clock this morning. The emergency response was massive. Police from Cambridge were quickly joined by police from other communities, including Boston. Massachusetts State Police and the FBI were also here. Bomb-sniffing dogs were brought in, along with a bomb squad. They searched for explosives. About 5 hours later, authorities gave the all-clear, and students were allowed to return, but still with a lot of questions. In Cambridge, Gail Huff, WGBH News.
My next guest served 2 terms as district attorney of Middlesex County, which is home to 26 college campuses. Gerry Leone is now a partner at the Boston law firm Nixon Peabody. Welcome, Gerry.
Hi, Emily.
So when you were DA, you dealt with this kind of stuff all the time on college campuses, and especially after September 11th, 2001, we started taking things more seriously.
We really do. We had a college consortium of all the safety and security chiefs in Middlesex amongst the 26 colleges and universities, and we keep getting better and more efficient and more effective about responses like this.
So how would this have come down this morning? You confirmed that it was an email, possibly to Harvard University Police. Would they have contacted your office right away? How would that work?
Immediately, there's a network of communications that takes place at the state, local, and federal level, and then the district attorney's office would then be involved as well from an investigative standpoint. But everybody who has jurisdiction is part of the response initially.
So, tracking down the culprit, there's all kinds of speculation. It was exam week. Sometimes these things are a prank. Sometimes it's something else. It takes it a little further. Who knows what? Will they be able to figure out who did it?
Well, it's not virtually certain that you can figure out. You have to source that email, and it isn't always able to be tracked back to who sent it. But the fact of the matter is, even if it was finals week and the conventional thinking is it was a prankster, you can turn that on its head and think of it worst case scenario and think that somebody used that as a setup to do something far more nefarious.
Yeah, there's no question. Having been in the news business all these years, it used to be that we ignored all of the bomb threats. The federal building, the Tip O'Neill building was constantly having a bomb threat for one reason or another. Some of the courthouses, constantly. High schools were having them. And nobody touched those stories because you didn't want to create a copycat scenario. But now, it's different. You feel like you have to. First of all, the threats seem more real. And secondly, you hesitate not to react. It's what the cops did today.
Well, we live in a threat, risk, vulnerability-laden society, especially since September 11th. We understand, on the worst-case scenario, terrorist mindset, and they think about things in a significant and symbolic way. And what more significant and symbolic target than one of our great universities?
When you were DA, did you have instances, this year, because of the Boston Marathon, I think people really jumped on it, but did you have similar incidences occur where you had to investigate some kind of a threat?
We did. There was a constant barrage of threats on college campuses, and what you try and do is have a threat assessment team at the ready, a group of individuals and leaders who can assess the nature of the threat to see whether or not it's a prank or whether or not there's something more serious.
So they bring in bomb-sniffing dogs. I mean, are they looking for anything and everything? I mean, if somebody says, we don't know what the email said, if it said that they were planted or somebody had seen exposed. So are they doing a site search and a sniffing thing too?
You try to be focused about this because otherwise the nature and scope can just be unbearable. So to the extent that there are places that are identified as a possibility where the bombs might be, you cover those places. But that can be just to throw you off the trail if it is somebody who's doing something other than a prank.
So then there was another one today at UMass Boston. I don't know too much about the circumstances there, but it feels, again, it's exam week, so you got to think if there's a correlation. Somebody, oh, that was a good idea, let me try that.
They actually, I think, from the nature of them, were different in that you had an anonymous email at Harvard threatening a bomb scare. At UMass, as I understand it, what was reported was seeing someone on campus with a gun, and that can take various different forms.
Yeah, we had a report of that. I think it was MIT a year ago. That turned out to be an utter hoax, though.
It did, and if you remember the Burlington Mall, we had somebody who mistakenly looked at a
guitar.
I think it was an umbrella that looked like a rifle. It turned out that they were doing the right thing by reporting it, but it had nothing to do with a real significant threat.
So you don't think they'll find these guys?
No, I think the possibility is very good, but we're also in a culture and an environment where young people know how to manipulate those emails.
We know, because we've gotten some here that we haven't been able to trace, so we know. All right.
All right.
Gerry, Leone, thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for having me, Emily.